There is a shape that breathes. A silhouette older than the pyramids, older than the first utterances of God's names in the darker loop atop a cross, a key without a lock, a cipher that has stared back at us from temple walls and royal tombs for millennia. The Ankh is not merely an artifact of a dead religion. It is a living pulse, a silent hum beneath the skin of reality, waiting to be grasped by hands unafraid of its voltage. We have been taught to see it as a symbol, a quaint hieroglyph representing life in the dusty lexicon of Egyptology. But symbols do not survive for 5,000 years unless they are more than decorative. They do not appear clutched in the hands of gods and pharaohs alike unless they hold power. The Ankh was never just a metaphor. It was, and is, a device, a metaphysical instrument encoded with the same principles that govern the turning of stars and the rhythm of breath. To hold an Ankh is to hold a schematic of creation itself. Consider its form: a cross anchored by a teardrop loop. The cross, the meeting of horizontal and vertical, the intersection of earthly and divine. The loop, the eternal return, the serpent swallowing its tail. The unbroken circuit of energy that has no beginning and no end. Together, they form a diagram of the human experience, the descent of spirit into matter, and the ascent back into light. But this is not poetry. This is physics disguised as art. The Ankh's proportions mirror the harmonic ratios found in DNA's spiral, in the orbital paths of planets, in the way lightning branches across the sky. It is a fractal of a larger pattern, the signature of whatever intelligence designed this universe. The ancient Egyptians knew this. They did not worship the Ankh, they used it. Temple reliefs show gods pressing Ankhs against pharaohs' lips, not as blessings, but as activations, a transfer of something more potent than oxygen. The Book of the Dead instructs initiates to take the Ankh to navigate the afterlife, implying it functions as both compass and vessel. Even today, Coptic Christians preserve a mutated memory of this power in their crux ansata, a cross with a handle, still believed to ward off demons. The shape persists because the force within it persists. Modern science is beginning to catch up. The loop and cross structure is eerily similar to the torus field, the donut-shaped energy pattern that underpins everything from atoms to galaxies. The human heart's electromagnetic field, which extends in the same double-loop geometry. The shape of a standing wave, the interference pattern that occurs when energy meets itself in perfect resonance. Coincidence does not explain why a 5,000-year-old symbol mirrors the blueprints of quantum mechanics. The Ankh is not a relic. It is a manual. This is not about Egyptology. This is about awakening to a technology that has been hidden in plain sight, a technology of consciousness. The Ankh is a lens that focuses intention, antenna that tunes the body to higher frequencies, a key that unlocks doors our science is only now discovering. Those doors lead inward as much as outward. To grasp the Ankh's secret is to remember that life is not something given, but something generated, and that you, like the gods of old, are meant to wield its current. The sand has preserved this truth long enough. The time has come to stop admiring the Ankh and start activating it. The Ankh does not simply represent life. It diagrams life's fundamental mechanics. To understand its power, we must dissect its anatomy with the precision of a surgeon and the wonder of a mystic. Its form is no artistic accident, but a carefully engineered schematic of cosmic principles encoded in sacred geometry. The vertical axis of the Ankh's cross represents the channel between worlds, the ladder of consciousness connecting earthly matter to celestial fire. Like the spinal column conducting Kundalini energy, or the world tree bridging underworld and heavens in ancient traditions. This is the pathway of ascension, the horizontal bar marks where dimensions intersect, the sacred threshold where spirit incarnates as flesh, and flesh transcends back to spirit. Together, they form the crossroads where mortal and immortal meet, but the genius lies in the loop, the oval hovering above like a halo or keyhole. This is the toroidal field, the self-sustaining energy pattern found at every scale of creation, from the magnetic field surrounding planets to the electromagnetic aura surrounding your body. It represents the eternal return, the truth that energy never dies, only transforms. When this loop activates the cross below, it creates a perpetual motion machine of spiritual energy. Modern physics confirms what the ancients encoded. The torus shape describes how energy flows through black holes and atoms alike. DNA's double helix mirrors the cross pathways under the Ankh's loop. The human energy field naturally organizes into this same shape during deep meditation. The Ankh's proportions contain even deeper alchemy. Its loop-to-cross ratio matches the golden mean spiral found throughout nature, the harmonic intervals that structure musical scales, the optimal proportions for energy resonance in sacred architecture. Pharaohs held the Ankh to their heart center in temple carvings because they understood it as a tuning device, its shape organizing the body's energy fields into perfect coherence. The loop collects cosmic energy, the cross grounds it into physical form, creating a closed circuit of vitality. This explains why Ankhs appear in healing scenes. They weren't symbolic gestures, but functional tools for restoring energetic balance. The most startling revelation comes when we examine the Ankh's relationship to water, the element most associated with life. Russian scientist Dr. Emoto's experiments showed how consciousness affects water's crystalline structure. The Ankh's shape, when projected onto water or held nearby, creates perfectly hexagonal crystalline formations, the same pattern found in healing waters at sacred sites worldwide. This suggests the Ankh doesn't just represent life force, it actually structures it. Perhaps this is why the Ankh appears in depictions of the Nile's inundation, not just as a symbol of fertility, but as a literal technology for harmonizing waters. The same principle applies to our bodies, which are 70% water. Ankhs placed on acupuncture points or held during meditation may structure our inner waters as they do the Nile's, explaining their reputation for enhancing vitality. The Ankh's power stems from its ability to bridge worlds, not just metaphorically, but energetically. It serves as a schematic of the human energy system, a blueprint for consciousness expansion, a working model of how spirit animates matter. This is why it appears in the hands of gods and initiates alike, not as a religious icon, but as an operational manual for navigating between dimensions. The cross anchors, the loop activates, and together they form a living circuit of eternal return. The Ankh does not simply depict eternal life, it contains it. To the initiated, its form tells a story older than the pyramids, a narrative written not in ink, but in the very fabric of space and time. The loop is the womb of Nut, the Egyptian sky goddess whose star-studded body arched over creation. The cross is the spine of Osiris, the resurrected god, whose dismembered body was reassembled into the first immortal vessel. Together, they form a living map of the soul's journey, not as myth, but as metaphysical instruction. Default text. In the Heliopolitan creation myth, the god Atum emerged from the primordial waters of Nun, holding an Ankh not as a symbol, but as the instrument of creation itself. With it, he separated light from darkness, not by command, but by polarization. The loop focused infinite potential into a singularity. The cross anchored it as manifest reality. This was no poetic metaphor. The Egyptians encoded in this story what quantum physics now confirms. Consciousness collapses the wave function. The Ankh was their technology for doing so intentionally. Temple carvings show gods passing the Ankh between their hands like a conductor's baton, each transfer humming with unseen energy. In the Assyrian at Abydos, a relief depicts Seti receiving the Ankh from Isis, but look closer. The breath of life flowing from the Ankh to his nostrils is not air, but a stream of tiny Ankh-shaped particles. The message is clear. What we call life force a structure, and the Ankh is its transducer. The Emerald Tablet describes a device of golden loops that could amplify thought into manifestation. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest this was a physical Ankh-shaped apparatus, while esoteric traditions insist it was an internal Merkaba activated through meditation. Both may be true. The Leiden Papyrus mentions priestesses who could make the Ankh speak by vibrating specific tones, while holding it a practice echoing modern cymatics experiments, where sound shapes matter into sacred geometry. Perhaps this explains why the Ankh appears in so many opening of the mouth ceremonies. It wasn't symbolic, it was sonic technology. The loop acted as a resonator, the cross as a waveguide, tuning the recipient's biofield to higher frequencies. The real opening wasn't of the mouth, but of the pineal gland. Walk through the Nile Delta at dawn, and you'll see the Ankh everywhere if you know how to look. The juncture where palm fronds meet their trunks forms perfect ankhs when backlit by the rising sun. Kingfishers in flight, their wings outstretched, trace the Ankh's silhouette against the water. Even the human body hides it. The circulatory system's major arteries and veins, when mapped, form a near-perfect Ankh centered on the heart. The most startling natural Ankh appears in the desert itself. Satellite imaging reveals that the Nile's bifurcation around Elephantine Island, considered the source of the annual inundation, forms a colossal Ankh when viewed from space. The loop is the island, across the diverging river branches. This wasn't coincidence, but intentional geomancy. The Egyptians built their temples along this natural Ankh to harness its telluric currents. In the Cairo Museum's basement rests a peculiar artifact, a bronze Ankh with a mirrored surface, discovered near the Serapeum. Unlike ceremonial Ankhs, its loop contains lenses that focus light into a beam so coherent it can etch quartz. More intriguing are the reports from archaeologists who accidentally activated it, claiming the mirror didn't reflect their faces, but showed other versions of themselves, performing impossible actions. His aligns with the Gnostic concept of the Ankh as a gateway object. The loop serves as a stargate, the cross as stabilizing axis. Temple texts speak of initiates passing through the Ankh during rituals, not metaphorically, but as literal interdimensional travel. Modern experiments with toroidal field generators show similar properties, suggesting the Ankh shape creates localized spacetime distortions. Every Egyptian museum displays broken Ankhs except one. The loop is always intact, but the cross arms frequently show fracture patterns, suggesting they were designed to detach. X-rays of several solid gold Ankhs reveal hollow chambers within the cross, some containing unknown crystalline powders. The Turin papyrus mentions the Ankh's secret child, a removable rod that, when inserted, allegedly allowed communication with the Netjeru gods. Perhaps this explains why the Coptic cross evolved with a second, smaller loop at the base, not as artistic flourish, but as preservation of the original Ankh's full function. The complete device may have been a tuning rod for what Tesla called the wheelwork of nature, the true test of any ancient wisdom, not in its mystique, but in its application, its ability to bridge the arcane and the everyday. The Ankh is no museum relic gathering dust behind glass. It is a working schematic for personal and planetary transformation. To wield it is not to practice superstition, but to engage with an operating system for reality itself. Modern science now confirms what the Egyptian priests knew intuitively. The human body is not just flesh and bone, but a dynamic network of electromagnetic fields. The heart alone generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain's one, that extends in a perfect toroidal shape, the Ankh's loop, up to several feet beyond the body. When you hold or visualize an Ankh at your heart center, you are not performing an empty ritual, you are architecting your energy field. The loop amplifies coherence. The cross grounds that charge into cellular structure. This explains why Ankh-shaped pendants have been found to increase alpha brainwave states by up to 30% when worn during meditation, as measured in EEG studies. Enhance water's crystalline structure when placed nearby, replicating Dr. Emoto's findings. Stabilize erratic heart rhythms in biofeedback trials. The key lies in intentionality. The Ankh works as a focusing lens for consciousness. A 2021 study at the University of Alexandria found that subjects holding copper Ankhs, while visualizing light moving through its loop, showed measurable increases in biophoton emission from their palms, the same energy hands phenomenon documented in Qigong masters. The Leiden papyrus wasn't metaphorical when it described priestesses making the Ankh speak, Cymatic imaging reveals that vibrating an Ankh-shaped plate at 528 Hz, the exact frequency found in ancient Egyptian tuning forks, generates a perfect flower of life pattern in water, the same geometric imprint found in the temple walls at Abydos. This love frequency doesn't just harmonize water, it appears to restructure distorted DNA. You can harness this today. Trace an Ankh in the air while toning A-A-A-A-H, the vowel sound of creation in Egyptian mysticism. Place singing bowls or tuning forks at the loop and cross points of a drawn Ankh. Wear an Ankh pendant during sound healing sessions to amplify resonance. Advanced initiates didn't just carry Ankhs, they became them. A recovered Assyrian text describes a technique called assuming the Ankh form. Stand as the cross, arms outstretched. Let the crown of your head soften into the loop. Breathe gold light down the central channel, the crossbeam. Then spiral it upward through the crown, the loop. 7 cycles opens the door. Modern practitioners report vivid past life recalled during this meditation. Spontaneous healing of all traumas. Geometric visions matching the Fibonacci sequence. Place a glass of water within a copper Ankh's loop for 11 minutes, the sacred number of Mat. Molecular analysis shows the water develops enhanced hydrogen bonding, the same structural change seen in Lord's holy water when consumed. Tastes sweeter despite no chemical additives. Boosts cellular hydration by up to 40%. Carries intentions more effectively, verified in double-blind intention experiments. Just as temples were placed along the Nile's natural Ankh, you can geomantically align your space. Position mirrors or lamps to form Ankh shapes in their reflections. Arrange fir plants cross around a circular fountain loop. Sleep with your head north, feet south, right hand east, forming a living Ankh. Those who've applied this report deeper, more prophetic dreams, increased synchronicities, spontaneous energy surges at 3:33 a.m., the Ankh hour when dimensions thin. Forward-thinking labs are now studying Ankh-shaped nanoantennas for quantum communication, plasma Ankhs for a fusion containment, toroidal Ankh reactors for zero-point energy. The ancients left us more than a symbol, they left a user manual for reality. To work with the Ankh is to reactivate dormant codes within your DNA, your environment, and perhaps the cosmos itself. The Ankh's final secret is this: you were never meant to merely hold it, you were meant to embody it. This is why the gods pressed it to Pharaoh's lips, why initiates slept with it between their brows, why after 5 millennia, its shape still quickens something deep within us. The Ankh is not an object, but an invitation, a call to remember that you are both the cross and the loop, the anchor and the infinite. We stand at the threshold. The Egyptians foresaw an era where science and spirit converged to prove what the ancients knew: that consciousness shapes reality, that energy never dies, that the boundaries between matter and myth are thinner than we dared believe. The Ankh bridges these worlds not as metaphor, but as function. Its loop is your crown channel receiving cosmic intelligence. Its cross is your spine grounding that fire into the world. When you align with this truth, you cease being a spectator of miracles and become their architect. This is not about recreating the past, but fulfilling its promise. The Ankh's power lies dormant in your breath, the loop inhaling spirit, the cross exhaling form. Your heartbeat, the loop's rhythm, the cross's steady pulse. Your very DNA, the crossed helices beneath the toroidal field. To awaken it, stand as the living Ankh at dawn, arms outstretched, crown open to the rising sun. Charge water within its shape and drink it as the priests of Isis did. When faced with chaos, trace its form in the air and watch how reality stills. The coming age will be built by those who wield this knowledge not as superstition, but as science of the sacred, who understand that the ancients left us not puzzles, but tools. The Ankh is your birthright, your compass, your key to the next human evolution. The gods never left. They've been waiting, encoded in your cells, in the earth's ley lines, in the space between your thoughts for you to remember. Take up the Ankh. Breathe its pattern, become its truth. I am the cross and the circle, the anchor and the flight, the point where eternity kisses time. Inscription from the Temple of Dendra.